Tell you something. If you two never bother me again the rest of my life, I ain't giving up that stuff. I can't. There's good friends of mine out on the say. Well, he's the boss, you have to do his stuff. That's why I said to you before, you don't understand what the boss is that the boss is your boss.
Where do I start? You're going down a very dangerous road.
And we ain't been down dangerous roads before. But that's the risk you take. Me, I take
Yeah, but
that
you're
risk.
not where I am. I give to charities, I pay my taxes.
Let's remember something. I put you where you are today. It's because of me. Mr. Good Citizen, you want to be like them? Come on, you ain't like them. They own this country. They're bigger gangsters than we ever could be. All of a sudden you want to be half in, half out, half a racketeer? You can't have it both ways. You're either in, or you're out.
You must have seen who shot you.
The man took a shot at his own boss.
We just grew up together. Frank sometimes forgets where he comes from.
You're more fly off the handle.
Make sure he's dead. Bang, 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 bang.
I don't want to make a lot of noise.
No noise, it's a fucking gun.
What happens now?
I'm gonna retire.
I need to find a way to take it all down.
It's just you and me. We are our own family.
He's up to something.
I'm telling you, he's not going to try anything.
How do you know what he's gonna do?
Ooh, Lord, ain't my trouble so hard.
All right, and welcome to Mob Talk Radio. If you are new to this channel, please hit the like and the subscribe button, and please donate if you can. All the Cash App and all of that nonsense is down below. What I wanted to talk about today was basically my review of Alto Knights. I know that I'm a giant stickler for mob films in general. Okay, let me see if I can do this really quick. Okay. I'm just going to get right into the review. And also, I wanted to let everybody know we're going to start doing lives, members only. We're going to be giving away 10 memberships for free a month. So feel free if you want to get the most accurate mob content on the internet, historically anyway, you'll be able to do that. So as many of you know, when it comes to mob films, I'm always very skeptical of anything that Hollywood tries to do when it comes to this genre. I mean, this genre, for the most part, Hollywood-wise, is dead. Yeah, Mark Wahlberg is going to be playing, Greg Scarpa in a new film, but that's going to be just horrible. But today I want to talk about Alto Knights. And perhaps it's one of the worst mob films I've ever seen. And I hate saying that because there were portions of it I did like, but there were things in it that were so historically inaccurate yet accurate that I found myself watching it going, okay, this isn't too bad. And then it just became a shit show very quickly. I think it was a well acted film, but the ending is what screwed this film up. And the reason why this film failed at the box office, because I've seen a lot of people all over the internet going, oh, it sucks because Robert De Niro hates Trump. It had nothing to do with this. And I hate to disappoint Trumpers, but it had nothing to do with De Niro's acting abilities or playing two roles or his disdain for Donald Trump. The fact is, most Americans have no idea who the hell Frank Costello or Vito Genovese was. You know, past Al Capone and John Gotti, nobody knows who these people are. Mob genre fans know who they are and know a lot. And that's how mob genre fans, that's why we get sort of upset at films like this. And I'm not going to go through the whole entire film. Rather, I just want to mention a couple of things. Number one, Vito Genovese was a powerhouse, and much of that was wielded because of his association with Carlo Gambino. And it's not to say that Gambino was, you know, almighty and powerful from day one, because he wasn't. He needed Vito as Vito needed him to push Anastasia out and Frank Costello out. And the film never seems to go in that direction. Yes, they show the murders, the attempted murders, but they never give you the real true reason behind it. And they never bother to mention Carlo Gambino being involved. And historically, we know, and we've talked about it on this show a million times, how everything went down. And so here's the point. When Vito Genovese returned from exile in Italy after fleeing murder charges, he came back and he wanted his rank and his rackets back from Lucky Luciano. He was told by Luciano, nope, that's not going to happen. And Costello said, nope, that's not going to happen. In fact, there is zero truth to the idea that they gave Genovese the West Side as a gift. That's all nonsense. Not a single word of that is accurate. And Vito knew if he ever wanted to ascend the throne, Costello and Anastasia had to be pushed to the side. And what this film doesn't even bother to mention is what happened in Cuba when Genovese told Luciano to step aside and give him the reins. And Genovese did it in a way which infuriated Luciano, and Genovese was beaten so badly he couldn't leave an apartment for almost a week. And that was a warning from Luciano to sit down and shut up. And what the film attempts to do is make Costello look weak, soft, like somebody who's out of touch with what's going on. And the reality is it's quite the opposite. And the film attempts to make it seem like Genovese all of a sudden wanted XYZ and was refusing to relent. And that's not how history tells us it happened. The coup. And the coup is Genovese needed to kill Anastasia because of the relationship between Costello and Anastasia. If you kill one, you got to kill the other because retribution would have been quick, swift, and insane. And the only way that Genovese could achieve that was by getting Carlo Gambino on board. He needed to get somebody from within the Anastasia crime family to go along with the coup. And Gambino, who was probably the biggest snake the mafia's ever seen, agrees to go along with the plan that Costello would be killed and Anastasia would be killed. And then at Appalachian, Gambino would be named boss of the Anastasia crime family. Vito Genovese would take over his family, and Vito Genovese would be the boss of all bosses. The film never bothers to show that. And I think they mentioned Carlo once in passing at that meeting. And Carlo was instrumental for the Genovese, for Vito to climb the chain, as Genovese was to Carlo's ascension as well. And while Vito was powerful, he was only as powerful as his violence. They sort of in this film make Vito appear to be like Carlo Gambino, but that's not simply the case. Genovese was a brute, complete brute. And they made him bigger, more violent, and less apt to mediate. You know, bullets over brains. Frank Costello was no softy. And Genovese had a beef with Costello over a lot of things, but mainly it was over drugs. Costello had vehemently argued against the mob's involvements in drugs on a street level, meaning guys selling all over the place. Meanwhile, the hypocrisy of all of that was that in those early days, it was Costello who made inroads with Joe Kennedy, who provided ships to Costello to run and provide shipping lanes for narcotics. In fact, Kennedy, who was overseeing the Coast Guard for the most part in those days, made way for Costello to move products for a decade unfettered. The idea that Costello had become morose or slow or ill-equipped to deal with the street stuff is almost laughable to me. Costello, if anything, wanted to remain low-key, quiet, and silent. That part they got right. But this idea that somehow Vito was running around doing this, doing that, killing this one, killing that one unfettered, it's just simply not true. And a total leap at something that didn't exist. And trust me when I tell you, Costello would have killed Vito in an instant if Vito was doing all of the things they try to portray in this film. I found the film didn't get a lot of things right. And I thought, listen, every film gets stuff wrong, right? But it just, for some reason, when they make films like this, they like to take advantage of history and tweak it for Hollywood. And it was a slanderous ending, a non-truthful ending, a complete lie-filled ending. And the Appalachian meeting of 1957 was actually called by Vito Genovese. Drugs and new management was the issue. And as we know, the party was raided by the cops. The film asserts and states that it was Frank Costello who called the cops on everybody and ratted everybody out. That's a total lie. It's complete nonsense, and it's a miscued delusion by the writers. It's not even true. And they forgot about the one person who was the most bitter and feared the conglomeration of Gambino and Genovese, and that was Joe Bonanno. And I don't know why. Maybe it just sold better. Maybe it sounded better. But they, in fact, made it very clear that Costello's the one who called the cops, dimed everybody out because it was an easy exit out of the life. And that's just simply not true. Because what they don't tell you in the film is by 1957, Costello was done. What they don't tell you is a decade later, Gambino, Luciano, and Costello helped set Genovese up to get arrested, which ended up putting him behind the wall where he dies. Costello had nothing to do with Appalachian at all. And he wasn't even there because he was persona non grata. He was basically shelved at that point. He retired. He didn't need to be there. And this was the Vito show. And if you think he needed Costello to be there to show grace, you're out of your fucking minds. Costello also never would have went near that party or that meeting because a year prior to that meeting, there were two other meetings just like that, which Costello did not go to. So the idea that somehow this one was more important and he needed to be there, it's a fucking joke. And labeling Costello a rat is about as bottom of the barrel as it gets. It's as disgusting as it gets, and it's a shit film for doing that. If, and I can say this honestly, if there was even a 1% chance Costello did that, I would tell you. There's no paperwork, nothing in the FBI files, nothing that even remotely points to that. But there are things that point to somebody else. But what you'll say is, well, how do you know Joe Bonanno did? Well, easy. Bonanno was backed into a corner. He was getting cut out of the rackets. He had problems within his own crime family. And his opinion didn't matter to the mafia anymore. Once Joe Profaci keeled over fucking dead, Joe Bonanno was basically on his own with one exception, and that was Joe Magliacco. And we know how that all went down. Bonanno had everything to gain by snitching on people at that meeting, and he had nothing to lose. The mere fact that Joe Bonanno was supposed to be there, it didn't even go, even though his driver's license was found at the scene, it says a lot. Not a single guy got away from that meeting unscathed, but we're supposed to believe somehow of all the people that got away in that meeting, Joe Bonanno got away. It's nonsense. Joe Bonanno at that time in 1957 and prior to 1957 was already giving information to the feds along with his son Bill about the mob to the FBI. And if you don't believe me, do your own research and you'll see that both Joe and Bill Bonanno were in fact, without a doubt, informants. It was not Frank Costello who dropped a dime. It was Joe Bonanno. The second thing is this, the police. And they don't show this in the movie. They were already onto the mafia in upstate New York. They were all over Joe Barbara and everybody else. It was not some random, oh, look, a car, let's investigate. The FBI, and you can look for yourself, they have airtels, which you can read. They were already listening to calls and more, but they knew a lot more about the mob than the mob knew they did. And the information and the reasons for the meetings, the time, the exact locations came from Bill Bonanno and Joe Bonanno. All of this is proven. I've proved it a million times. I've shown the paperwork. Go look for yourself. I thought the film did get some things right. I thought De Niro's portrayal of Vito Genovese was pretty on the mark with a couple of different exceptions. I think the Costello character was soft, weak, and that's not who Frank Costello was. De Niro played Genovese like a cross between Jimmy Burke, Max Cady, and Sam Rothstein. And listen, in final, it's a film, right? It's not to be taken literally. But when you make a false claim and you make a guy a rat when he wasn't, and you don't do any goddamn research, then what the fuck are you doing? Nick Pileggi can eat my ass. He's the worst. Just the absolute worst. Great author, bullshit artist. And as well, Stop casting Kathrine Narducci in every fucking mob film, please. I'm tired of her, tired of seeing her face. I was always hoping Artie Bucco would strangle Charmaine in the fucking kitchen. Seriously, obnoxious and unappealing as two rhinos fucking. That's how I see it. So this movie flopped, not because of the runtime, not the actors political viewpoints. It flopped because nobody knows who the fuck Vito and Frank are. And I've always said, I've said this on the record, the first Gotti film on HBO was fantastic, right? But anything you try to do with John Gotti has to start when he's 16 or 17 in the streets. Show him working with Carmine Fatico, how he came up the ranks. That's a Gotti story. That's the Gotti story that needs to be told, with all due respect. I don't want to see another film where a man dies and suffers. I just don't. Show the audience how John became John, the scabs, the scars, and everything in between. And nobody ever thinks about a 3-hour film where we see John from 15, 16, 17 through his heyday. Yeah. While it's important to show the end of Gotti's life, because in many ways his story is the American tragedy in every sense, whether he brought that onto himself or not. But to not really put the audience in his shoes is a big mistake. And I'm waiting for somebody to put together a Gotti film that's like that, because to me, that's intriguing. So it's up to you. Go out and watch Alto Knights, enjoy it, but just know it's bullshit. And just once, please, Hollywood, stop changing fucking history for your own character arcs and story arcs. The actual history of this entire event is good enough on its own. It merits its own film. And I know what people are going to say. Well, fuck De Niro and his political. Okay, that's fine. He's still a good actor. I don't care what anybody says. I think we can make the argument De Niro's films in the last 10 years have been shit. But that's the reality, is they continue to distort history. And I guarantee you, when they bring out the Scarpa film, they're going to do the Mississippi burning bullshit, which is all a lie. Never happened. Never went to Mississippi to kill people. It's all nonsense and lies. And if it's not, prove it, because you can't, because there's no FBI documents to back that up. They were lies perpetuated by Greg Scarpa's wife, and she actually perjured herself on the stand making up those lies, because that's what he told her to make himself seem more grandiose. And so with any mob film, you know, I'm a mob snob. I hear it all the time. Gorky always tells me, you're a mob snob. You don't like any films. I was okay with this film until the end, because it's nonsense. It's nonsense. And for them to claim in bold letters, the true historical, it's not true. It's not true. And before anybody says, he always thinks he knows everything. No, it's called research. I'm the only one that does it. And those are facts. All right. So that's going to be it for today. We got some more stuff coming for you. Go out and watch it. Let me know what you think for yourselves. Other than all that being said, catch you later.